The Champions League is looking very tasty. After an incredible round of fixtures in Matchday 7, the league phase is coming to its end. With one more game left, a lot of things are left to be played for. Automatic qualification, as well as those playoff positions, and who is at risk of falling out of the competition entirely. But before we get into any of that, if you guys are new to the channel and you like what you're seeing, make sure you subscribe down below, hit the post notification bell so you never ever miss out on a video. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I cannot make that possible without the help of every single one of you. Make sure you like the content if you like what you're seeing. If you don't, comment down below what you'd like to see. And of course, let's get right back into it. Now, of course, the Champions League is one of those competitions that really reignites my interest in football. The Champions League, international football, as well as rivalry football. And to be very honest with you, this round of football was incredible. I didn't get a chance to watch every single game, but the few games that I did get to see, I just wanted to discuss. Now, kicking off with Barcelona, of course, you guys know I'm not going to come here and talk about the Champions League without talking about my beloved Barcelona. Very quick points on Barcelona. I thought Frenkie de Jong today was absolutely incredible. Barcelona have not been that great in this Champions League campaign as a whole. Of course, we're still in the running for that automatic competition or automatic playoff positions. But in my opinion, this team just has not been that great in the Champions Leagues. The performances have had a lot lacking, and we've looked a lot better in La Liga. I think today you saw that lack of intensity that probably isn't as present in La Liga. Slavia Prague really brought that intensity today, and Barcelona really struggled. I thought Pedri did not have the best of games. Frenkie de Jong, a player who continues to get perpetual criticism with this fan base, one of the best players on the field today, continues to be one of our more consistent players in this football club. But I guess those things don't get seen. In my opinion, Fermin Lopez is probably my favorite footballer to watch in football right now. A player who completely rewrites what a La Masia product should be. A player who goes against the grain, has that technical proficiency that you'd expect from a La Masia graduate, picks up nice positions on the field, has incredible IQ, knows the sort of passes, receives the ball in the right areas, but also has that style of play that kind of goes away from the traditional La Masia style of football, where he's willing to take shots from outside the box. He's willing to do things that perhaps are a bit risky and kind of may put the team at risk of losing the ball, or may put the team at risk of passing the ball to somebody who's not in the right position. But Fermin Lopez doesn't care. He brings that chaotic, intense style of play to the team that I think is really, really pivotal in games like this against Slavia Prague, where teams are sitting deep and you just need a bit of chaos to kind of shake the game up. And I think his 2 goals today is just a continuation of the incredible things he's continued to do for about the last 18 months. But of course, we can talk about all the good things that Barcelona did today, but we will continue to talk about, or I will continue to praise or lambast that this defense will not take us far in the Champions League. You can have as many goal scorers as you want up top. You can have Lewandowski, you can have Haaland, you can have Mbappe, you can bring Messi, you can bring Ronaldo back to 23 years old. This defense is not going to get us anywhere in this competition. Again, today, you look at the set pieces that Slavia Prague scored. Genuinely, if we come up against Arsenal, I am not watching the game. If we come up against Arsenal, I am not watching the game, because we might see Gabriel Magalhaes score 5 goals. We might see Saliba and Timber put 7 on our head. Genuinely. Set pieces we can't defend. The minute we score goals, we're susceptible to concede literally from the kickoff. From the kickoff. This defense is not going to get us anywhere. I used to criticize Flick and blame him and say, why do we keep playing this high line? But now I understand, because we cannot defend our box. We don't have players who are able to defend the box when crosses are coming in, when the opposition is applying pressure. We don't have those players. So the best way is to just negate the threat from the source. But this high line is not working. Defending deep is not working. This team cannot defend. So our only hope is to outscore them. But when you come up against a team who actually knows how to defend, it might get scary. Speaking of teams that know how to defend, Arsenal came out winners against Inter Milan this week. The one thing that I really took away from this game is that this Arsenal team continues to be deep. This team has incredible depth in all parts of the field. This is a game they didn't have an Odegaard playing out there. They didn't have a Declan Rice. They didn't have a Martinelli. They didn't have a Gyökeres. They didn't have a Gabriel. They didn't have a Hicapié or a Calafiori. Yet they were still able to go to the San Siro and put in a professional, and if we're being completely honest, comfortable performance. I think Inter Milan, ever since Inzaghi left that football club, that project is completely dead. Lautaro Martinez continues to confuse me as a footballer. Whenever the lights are shining bright, he kind of just cowers away. I think Arsenal continue to show everybody why they are the best team in Europe, whether you like them or not. And if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I've said this multiple times on the channel. I'm not a huge fan of this Arsenal team. I don't think they play the best football. I don't think they're that exciting to watch. I don't think they do anything that really makes me excited to watch them. But who cares? I'm not an Arsenal fan. And all my Arsenal fans watching, you should not care what people think either. You're 7 points clear in the Premier League. You're top of the Champions League table. You're basically in the Carabao Cup final. In my eyes, you're in the Carabao Cup final. And the FA Cup is still there to be won. This can be a historic season for Arsenal, but everybody just needs to keep their head in check. Professional victory for Arsenal, and they keep on chugging along. Their North London rivals, in fact, actually picked up a win themselves and actually put themselves fourth, I think, at this point in the league table. And to be very honest with you, Tottenham Hotspur are a team that just continue to confuse me. I do think their high league position is down to the fact that they have had a lot of easy games. I think the majority of the games they've played in this group phase has been teams that you wouldn't be surprised to see in the Europa League. So I'm not surprised that Tottenham are doing well in the Champions League. I also do think that Premier League teams just inherently do better in the Champions League because of their intensity, because of the style of play in which they play. And I also believe just the amount of money they have, the quality of players that they have. You kind of look at it within the scope of the Premier League and you think that's not a great team, or that's not a great player, or that's not a great system. But then when these guys play against teams across Europe or in other countries, you look at it and you think, wow, this guy actually looks like an incredible player. I thought Xavi Simons was really great, and this is a Xavi Simons who's been absolutely diabolical in the Premier League for Spurs this season. Lucas Bergvall was good once again. Dominic Solanke came back from injury, has been picking up more minutes. Matthias Tell was actually deregistered for him. And I thought Dominic Solanke looked pretty good. This is a Dortmund team that is second in the Bundesliga, and many people have been saying have looked pretty solid this year. Just because Bayern Munich are running away with the league doesn't mean Dortmund aren't good. But I continue to say this. Dortmund are just one of those, no offense to my Dortmund fans, but it feels like they're just one of those filler clubs where they're just kind of in the mix for the sake of it. They don't really add anything. They don't really remove anything. They're just there. And of course, I know they got a red card in this game, so that completely changed the whole scope of this game and the whole way the game was played out. But if I'm being completely honest, even with 11 men, I wouldn't have been surprised if Dortmund had lost this game. Thomas Frank has been walking on eggshells in recent weeks, and I'm actually surprised he's not been sacked by now, with them sitting 14th in the league. But I do think this Spurs team, some people do overrate how good of a team they are in terms of the players they have. I think Thomas Frank, he is a manager who is having a lot of growing pains. I think when you have a manager who comes from a side like Brentford, who, no offense to them, are a lower down in the league team, I think it can be difficult to adjust to the expectations of a bigger club. Ultimately, he probably hasn't done enough, and I think the morale surrounding the club is probably too negative and toxic at this point for him to salvage anything. As some people would say, the situation is untenable. But I do believe that given a bit of time, you're doing well in the Champions League. Of course, they won't be happy with the eliminations in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, but this is a win that you can celebrate. So Tottenham Hotspur, they continue to chug along, and they're probably going to finish in the top 8. So it'll be interesting to see how they set up in the next round. Quick shout out to Real Madrid. Of course, 6-1 victors over AS Monaco, a Monaco team that's been really inconsistent this year in Ligue 1. I think they're 9th in the league at this point in time. And of course, Kylian Mbappe scores twice. Vinicius looks to be back in form. And I just want to let's not be too hasty, right? Vinicius Jr., he showed an incredible level last night against AS Monaco. But I do think at the same time, we've seen sparks from Real Madrid this season. We saw it in the Betis game. We saw it in the Valencia game. We saw it in the Barcelona game. But we just need that consistency from this side. Of course, we saw Mbappe pressing. And I genuinely believe like this whole Real Madrid football club, they live in this bubble of just propaganda where any sorts of efforts or anything that's kind of done out of the normal or things that should be normal, but because it's Real Madrid, they're not normal. So like working hard or tracking back, like these things are being pushed into the media as though this is a new era at Real Madrid. Just chill. Like everything in Real Madrid feels so gimmicky. It feels so gimmicky. Of course, Vinicius Jr. was the best player on the night. And I hope this is the Vinicius Jr. we continue to see because those few years from about 2022 to 2024, Vinicius Jr. was incredible. So if he gets back to that level, football is in a better place, in my opinion. Real Madrid, of course, recording that 6-1 victory probably qualifies them for the next round. And also, Paris Saint-Germain lose to Sporting Lisbon. I caught a glimpse of that game. I didn't see the entire thing. People will continue to run this narrative as though Paris Saint-Germain, last year, they didn't do so well in the group stage. It didn't matter because they eventually won the tournament. I do think there's a lot of weaknesses in this Paris Saint-Germain team this season. I've watched a lot of their games this year. The game against Bayern Munich, they probably should have lost that game 3 or 4 or 5-0 if not for the red card. The game against Barcelona, they went tooth and nail with a Barcelona side, in my opinion, that were absolutely diabolical at the start of the season. and then they drew 0-0 with Athletic Bilbao. They have Newcastle next week, and they must win that game if they want to qualify for the next round, at least automatically. So Paris Saint-Germain, I think we can give them the benefit of the doubt because they're the holders, they're the champions, but I do think we need to sit down and actually look at this side. Of course, now the knockout stages are coming around, they're just around the corner. That is a conversation that will probably be had, and to be very honest, if they don't pick up their form, I won't be surprised if they get knocked out early in this competition. Another quick shout out to Manchester City, or I don't know if you give them a shout out, but another loss for Manchester City, back-to-back losses after that defeat to Michael Carrick's Manchester United. And to be very honest with Manchester City, as I said in their video about how intriguing I find this team, I mentioned in that video, this team's ceiling and their floor, the gap is way too large. In the sense that when they play well and they're at their best, they are one of the best teams in world football. But when this team is not clicking, just as they've not been clicking for about the last 3 weeks, this team is horrible. This team is horrible. Of course, they're having a lot of injuries right now, and hopefully that Marc Guéhi signing is going to lead them and help them in the defensive side of the field. But I just believe, even before Diaz and Vardio got injured, even before Guéhi came into the side, even before Rodri came back from injury, and he doesn't look the same player as he was before the ACL, obviously. So I just feel as though this Manchester City team, there are systematic issues with this team. Erling Haaland has not scored a goal in, I believe, 8 non-penalty goals in 8 games. Ryan Cherki was one of the few players in this game who actually looked, decent. Phil Foden, poor again in this game. Just completely bullied out of the game, had no impact whatsoever. And that defense, goodness gracious. I struggle. I always believe when I watch Barcelona defend, I think there's no one else in world football that defends as bad as this. And Manchester City defend probably even worse. So somehow, I don't know how they do that. But the team I really wanted to talk about is Liverpool. And the reason I want to talk about them is because I haven't talked about them that much on this channel. Arne Slot has been a manager who's been under a lot of pressure, and rightly so, because there was a period in the season where Liverpool could just not stop losing. But I think now you fast forward to this time, and they're on a good little unbeaten streak. Of course, admittedly, there's been games in there where you're looking at it and you think you should be winning those games, like Burnley, Leeds, even the Arsenal game. They probably could have nicked something in that game. Of course, they had a lot of absentees, and we talked about that game on the channel. But I just feel as though right now, Arne Slot is doing an incredible job in steadying the ship once again at Liverpool. I think the way the team is playing right now, you look at the team and you kind of see a team that knows what they're meant to be doing. The players out there, it seems like they know their roles, they know their responsibilities. Florian Wirtz playing in that floating left. Kirkes, his improvements in his level has been very, very impressive in my opinion, and I think it hasn't been talked about enough. I think Jeremy Frimpong, as I've said it before, I don't think he's that great of a player, but I think he's definitely improved and he's adding something to this Liverpool team that they've definitely missed, particularly in those wide areas of the field. Mohamed Salah, of course, did his thing at AFCON, and it was going to be interesting to see how he would come back into this side. And he's come back into the side. Again, he came back into the side against Marseille. And of course, he didn't score. He didn't have that many touches. But I thought he had a bit more impact in the game, more impact than you saw in those previous weeks that kind of got him kicked out of the team for lack of a better term. But I do think this Liverpool side is improving. I don't think they're going to win the league. I don't think they're the favorites for the Champions League. But I think they are a team that people should keep an eye out for. Because honestly, Hugo Ekitike, that brother is a player. That brother is a player. I look at the performance he dropped tonight. Of course, he admittedly hits the crossbar twice or hits the post twice. He scores an offside goal. But his all-round complete game, and even outside of this game against Marseille, the guy is incredible at so many things on a football pitch. He starts the game wide left from time to time. He drifts in many times during the game. His link up with Florian Wirtz is honestly, at this point, it's becoming telepathic. There was a point in the game where he played a beautiful cross to Mohamed Salah where he just headed it wide. He has so many tools in his arsenal. The guy can take you on 1v1. He can run in behind. He can bully you. He can win aerial duels. He's clinical when he does get the chance in front of goal. Honestly, he's such a versatile player. And of course, with Alexander Isak being out for as long as he is going to be out for, I think Hugo Ekitike being a main star player for Liverpool is important. And with Florian Wirtz behind him, who is also a player who has been receiving a lot of criticism when he first came in, his level has improved massively in these last few weeks. Liverpool could do something very interesting this season. Of course, the league title is out of the question. FA Cup is still there. As well as the Champions League, you never know what can happen. I thought Van Dijk in this game was much improved, and the midfield just looked assured. Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, McAllister, Florian Wirtz coming in and supporting from time to time. I thought Marseille in this game, once again, Roberto De Zerbi side, they tease, and you get nothing from it. That's just Roberto De Zerbi and his football teams. In the biggest games, of course, they'll pump every team in Ligue 1. They'll pump teams in the Coupe de la Ligue. They'll pump teams in the Trophée des Champions. But when it comes to the big games against teams that have equal level players than you, maybe even better, as Liverpool had in this game, it just shows you night and day. Because sometimes his style of play is too chaotic. I thought Mason Greenwood in this game was very interesting. His free roaming ability, I thought he had a huge impact in the game, at least going forward for Marseille. His ability to go on both sides, whether it be left foot, whether it be the right foot, I thought it was very interesting. And I think he had a good game. Of course, not the result that he or the team would have wanted, but I thought he was one of the few bright sparks in that Marseille side today. I thought their midfield was completely overran. But Liverpool are interesting right now. Let's see whether they can transfer this performances and this level. Of course, Marseille are not that good of a team. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. Yes, there might be top 4 in Ligue 1, but Ligue 1 is not that great of a league. And I continue to tell people, the gap between the Premier League and the other leagues, it's growing way too much, in my opinion. It's growing way too much because this is a Liverpool team that you go to the Premier League and many people will tell you these guys are average. And they kind of just swatted aside a Marseille team in their own stadium today without any much of a fuss. A Marseille side that some people were saying could challenge for Ligue 1 this season. Just shows you how much money is running in the Premier League. And those people who were shouting for Arne Slot to get sacked, I understand the premise, I understand the feeling, but what happened to patience in football? I mean, the guy won the Premier League last season, and people who were throwing the whole idea that, oh, Mohamed Salah carried him to the league title, I can hear it, but at the same time, I do believe that the manager does have a part to play. It's like whenever people throw this narrative that Zinedine Zidane didn't win the Champions League, Ronaldo, Benzema, and Modric did. If that was the case, then why didn't Ancelotti win it before Zidane? Why didn't Rafa Benitez win it before Zidane? Why didn't Lopetegui win it after? That's not how football works. You still need a manager who's able to manage the team, set up the tactics. Even if the players are so good that they can kind of coach themselves within the game, you still need to be able to put them in the right places. And I think at the start of the season, he was having problems with that. But I think as the season has gone on, you've just seen him grow from strength to strength. And right now, Liverpool look like a very solid team, in my opinion. Of course, as I said, I cannot touch on every single game. I think there are about, I don't even know how many games there are in the Champions League group stages now. 17? I'm not even sure. 18 games. I'm not talking about every single one of those games. There were other games. Chelsea winning, Atletico Madrid drawing, Diego Simeone. I'm not going to talk on every single one of those games, but let me know what you guys thought about all those games that I talked about, as well as all the other ones that I didn't talk about. Let me know what you thought about them. Who was your player of the week? Who were players who you weren't really impressed with? Of course, as I said before in the video, make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below if you didn't. Let me know what I should improve upon. And subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. Because there's a huge number of you who watch these videos and you're not subscribed to the channel. So make sure you subscribe. Hit the post notification bell so you never, ever miss out on a video. And yeah, take care of yourselves.